I call the October 8, 2018 City Council Committee of the Whole to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Borowitz.
Here.
Brooks.
Here.
Crawford.
Here.
Frank.
Here.
Freeman.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Ratcliffe.
Here.
Sanderson.
Here.
Snow.
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
10 present.
Thank you. Full house. Under public comment, Alderman Porter had something he'd like to say about the fire department open house. Please proceed.
Okay, thanks. Just real quick, I just wanted to say that I attended the fire department open house this weekend, and I was pretty impressed by the whole operation. Our fire team members and everything, and especially their safety programs. I'm real impressed with their safety programs, especially the ones educating kids on fire safety with the firehouse, the smokehouse, and all the other programs. So I just wanted to comment on that and say that I think, people of Belvidere can be pretty proud of our fire department, and proud that we have them on our side.
Thank you very much. Good job, Chief. Good job. Under public forum, we have none this evening, and under reports of officers, boards, and special committees. Under building, planning, and zoning, unfinished business, none. Building, planning, and zoning, new business. Under A, we have the Future Farmers of America application fee waiver. So who wants to talk about that? Gina?
For the last couple of months, I've been working with the president and vice president of the FFA at Belvidere North. They plan on proposing a text amendment to allow backyard chickens with a list of built-in conditions. The girls have done a lot of research on this. We actually had a mock public hearing at the school where the teachers could cross-examine them and ask questions. It's become quite the project for them. So they plan on coming forward probably next month with this text amendment. However, since they are students and they're applying for this on behalf of the FFA, they are asking for the $500 application fee to be waived.
I have a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Alderman Crawford. May I have a second? Second by Alderman Brooks. Well, then please ask it.
Gina, I seem to recall maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, there was something that come before the council regarding having chickens in the city of Belvidere. Do you recall that, or does the mayor recall it?
Yeah, actually, I looked into it. I went up to Roscoe. Roscoe allows it, and I got some information from Roscoe and so forth, but it never really gathered any steam.
And I think at this step of it, this is a effort by the FFA kids to get involved in government and to get into the process. Whether it's approved or not, that will be up to you, but this is the ability to file the application, to follow the process, and I think it's admirable that our young people want to bring this to us to have a full discussion.
And to answer that question, I don't specifically remember anyone actually applying. We get questions all the time in the department as to whether or not they're allowed. But as far as someone applying, I don't remember that. Years ago, we did have someone petition with a text amendment, and it was approved to allow pot-bellied pigs in town. That was the last one I remember. Correct.
And there was a weight limit. And they haven't seemed to have caused a problem. Anybody seen a pig on the loose lately?
Oh, well, actually, last year there was one.
Did we catch it?
Yeah, someone came in to pay her water bill and said that there was the ugliest dog he'd ever seen over by the bank on Logan, and it ended up being a pig that was running loose.
Oh, did we get it home okay?
Animal control came and got it.
Okay. Do they have a barbecue at lunch? Okay. Any additional questions or comments? Alderman Sanderson.
Well, I've raised chickens before, and they're pretty darn messy. I've had a lot of complaints, when the people have had chickens that we've, had to have cite for not having chickens. I don't have a problem with them going through the process, but I don't know if, I think chickens should be for the county, and I've had people complaining that roosters were crowing in the middle of, early up in the morning and all that kind of stuff, I think we could open ourselves up if this is approved down the long run. So I don't have a problem with waiving the fee for future farmers of America to talk to us about it, but I have my skepticism on it.
Perfectly fine. Alderman Snow.
And I had 2 residents within a block of me that had chickens, and I got calls about it, and they got kiboshed, so it may not be a slam dunk.
Chicken haters. Okay.
And I have been cautioning the girls. They're well aware of it, but they are proud of the research and the presentation they've done, and they want to be able to present it. I don't want to go into too many details of what they plan on doing, because that's really for the public hearing and then ultimately before you guys when it's an agenda item, but I have been cautioning them.
Alderman Snow.
And maybe this should be, I hate to bring this term up, but on a referendum, so voters can decide if this doesn't pass through the, through zoning matters and comes before us and fails, that might be an option, and then let the constituents actually vote on it.
It could be.
I
Be
think
an
it's a step at
education
a
for 'em.
time, and let's give the kids a chance. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the motion now on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved unanimously and be forwarded to City Council for final disposition. Under B, we have a local landmark designation at 401 East Lincoln Avenue. There was an extensive packet put in your packet concerning this coming forward. May I have a motion to approve?
I'll second it.
Motion by Brooks, second by Crawford. Questions, comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 401 East Lincoln local landmark designation is approved unanimously and be forwarded to City Council for final disposition. That will bring us to item number 3, Public Works Unfinished Business. We have none this evening. Number 4, Public Works New Business, we have quite a few. Under A, we have Distillery Road streetlights. Alderman Snow. Yes, Alderman Snow, take the floor.
Yes, I had a constituent out on Distillery Road who belongs to one of the associations of one of the neighborhoods, and they were inquiring as to whether they could get streetlights down Distillery Road, and they were voicing concern about security and cars being parked down that road, particularly at night, since it's fairly isolated and dark. And I did explain to him after I talked to the Public Works Director, Brent Anderson, that as the areas in that down Distillery Road get developed, lights would be installed as they progress up to Highway 20, but at this point we didn't have anything. But I just wanted to bring it forward to get feedback from other aldermen and see if in the future, if we are going to put the lights in, should we go ahead and put those in now, and knowing that in the future they'll get paid for in the long run.
Brent, do you want to comment on this?
Well, typically, as Alderman Snow stated, the lights for an undeveloped, for a rural section roadway where development's taking place, the lights are installed as development does take place. And as you can see in the aerial photo that was included in the packet, there's some red or orange dots along Distillery Road indicating the locations where there are currently streetlights. And our typical standard is we'll put them at the intersections, at any intersection created. And then also typically we'll space them out typically every 300 feet as well. So there's a couple sections on Distillery that are long sections in there with a mid-block, but because there's undeveloped territory there and you don't really know where the intersections are going to ultimately end up being, that's why the lights won't be done until everything's platted typically, so you know where the intersections go, because that's really what dictates your light spacing.
Can you estimate the cost of installing them now when they're not necessary?
Well, current cost for a ComEd typical streetlight pole, residential pole, probably is in the neighborhood of $3,000, $3,500, plus you also have the expense of the wire and the trenching and everything that goes along with it as well. And then once you do that, you have the ongoing monthly maintenance costs on top of that.
Additional comments or questions? Alderman Sanderson?
Well, and typically, yeah, like the developer usually pays for these things, and like if we have something put in there ahead of time, that might be harder to have them pay for something. I remember when Alderman Crawford subdivision, they needed lights along Bonus Avenue. Remember that, George? And we had to end up having the taxpayers pay for that. So we should make sure that the developer pays for that, and then we just have to continue with the light bill, so there's no problem. Because there's plenty of places in town that the streetlights weren't up to par for what we have, that there's lots of dark areas in the older parts of town. So, given that we're trying to keep the budget tight and need to find more revenue, I don't think it's a good idea to do this now.
Okay, good point. Alderman Snow?
And I did copy the police chief on the issue as well, and he had sent me an email saying he was having his guys do more patrols out in that area just to help curb that, so.
Additional questions or comments? You want to make, Alderman Stevens?
How much of this is actually bordered by the Belvidere Township also? For
Well, we have the jurisdiction of Distillery Road for the entire section now, so it's all ours. But as far as, right now, until you're annexed to the city, it's all township property. But
So
the
maybe you wanna
roadway
bring that
itself
up
is
with
ours.
the township. Alderman Snow?
So, just to throw it out there, I'll make a motion that we put the street lights in that would be go in the future.
You're going to make, what is the motion again?
To put the street lights in that would have been installed in the future.
Do I have a second for that?
Mr. Mayor, I think you might want to clarify that, because that all depends how many street lights, where they're spaced.
Well, like you said, if you're gonna use the standard that we have, you'd be putting them in every 300 feet, which it's about a 6,000 lineal foot section of road. So that'd be 20 lights minus, you'd have to accommodate the ones that are already there and work that into design. But again, once you do that, then when the subdivisions come in and they don't line up with the lights, then you're gonna be redoing lights at that point in time also.
So is there a second for the motion now on the floor? No second, so the motion is lost. Okay. Thank you for bringing it to us. Alderman Snow. Under B, we have well number 4, emergency repairs. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. A memo in your packet. Unfortunately, well number 4 quit pumping on water Monday night, October 1st. It was determined that we lost fuses on the ComEd service, causing our 3-phase service to single phase, which caused the pump to shut down. And already determined the amount of damage that we have, we need to get it pulled out of the ground. I received 2 proposals to do the pulling, Cohoy Group and Great Lakes Water Resources. And as you can see, for the first time since I've worked for the city of Belvidere, we had a tie. And not only did they tie on the price, but they also said they could start, because timing's critical, because this is our 3rd well that's down right now, and they both could start tomorrow. So we consulted the city attorney on our methods to resolve the tie, and included in your packet is IDOT standard for resolving a tie. Both contractors chose the coin flip method, so they both chose not to be present, so we had them patched in on the telephone, and the coin flip was conducted, and the Cohoy Group was had the winning call. I would recommend approval of Cohoy Group to complete the repairs to well number 4. This work's going to be paid for from a water system depreciation account. Now, what's going to happen is the $79.50 is what it costs to pull the well out of the ground. They already have their rigs there in place. They're going to start working tomorrow. They should have it out of the ground by Thursday or Friday morning at the latest, and then be able to determine what repairs need to be made. So you should see on your desk Monday night cost estimate for making those repairs, and the part of the motion Monday night will be to include that cost. I will also need a motion from the council to waive the bidding requirements at that time.
So may I have a motion to approve this? Or motion by Brooks, second by Snow. Additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion is approved unanimously and be forwarded to council for further disposition. Under C, we have replacement of the valve actuators at the wastewater treatment plant. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. In your packets, we have a memo regarding, we have 3 valve actuators at the treatment plant that need to be replaced. Again, we got pricing from Swanson Flow and LAI Limited. I would recommend approval of the proposal from Swanson Flow in the amount of $15,254 for the replacement of the 3 valve actuators at the wastewater treatment plant. This work will be paid for from line item 615-820-6010.
I have a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Alderman Crawford, second by Alderman Borowitz. Question, comments, further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved unanimously and will be forwarded to council for final disposition. Under item D, we have the force main extension from the VFW to the wastewater treatment plant, the engineering study. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. Again, memo in your packet. The force main extension, part of the force main, the majority of it was installed as part of the Appleton Road project. The section that's left is to go from the VFW, the bank of the river, underneath the river, across the waterfall property to the treatment plant. Discussion, this work was originally scheduled for 2012, but as council knows, we had to go through quite the process to get the easement from the waterfall. So the final engineering was never completed based on the outcome of those discussions. We were able to acquire that easement, and so now that we have that, we can proceed with the design engineering. I would recommend approval of the proposal from CES in the amount of $8,750 to complete the design engineering for the Appleton Road force main extension from the VFW to the wastewater treatment plant. And we'll pay for this out of sewer line item 615-820-6190.
I have a motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Sanderson. Questions, comments, or further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved unanimously and forwarded to City Council for final disposition. Brings us to item E, the Logan Avenue survey that was in your packets. Mr. Anderson.
Again, memo in your packet. Logan Avenue has been talked about here for the last several years. It's included in our capital, our long-term capital program for some upgrades. We've been through the alternative assessment program. Decision was reached that we'd basically keep the same configuration, 4 lanes, 4 12-foot lanes, driving lanes, and basically do not a total reconstruction, but do repair this roadway section with new sidewalks and curb and gutter. The current ADA regulations, however, throws a monkey wrench into those plans. They used to allow for a 3-foot minimum clearance on sidewalks for ADA. They now require a minimum of 4 foot. As you can see with the attached pictures that were included in your packet, we have several areas along Logan Avenue where we do not have the minimum ADA requirement. Also attached to the memo was a cross-section, the typical cross-section of 12-foot lanes. And if you look on there, there should be enough room for everything to work. However, it's obvious by the photos that it doesn't. So the right-of-way survey needs to be done. And talking with the relocation engineer from Commonwealth Edison, we are responsible to do the right-of-way survey. Once we have that right-of-way survey done, we would give that information to Commonwealth Edison. They would then prepare the easement documents necessary for their poles to be relocated to eliminate that ADA conflict. Once they have those easement documents prepared, they would then give them back to the city. We would acquire the easements on behalf of ComEd, and once that process is done and the easements have been acquired, then it goes back to ComEd for their design work to actually do the pole relocations before it's released to construction and have the poles actually physically relocated. That process, if everything goes according to plan, typically takes 12 months. So if we get the approval through council and that work is started, it's probably going to be by next winter before those poles will get relocated and eliminate that ADA conflict. So before you can even, that's the first step that has to be done no matter what point in time that we do the Logan Avenue project, or any work on Logan Avenue for that matter. In addition to the survey work, Arc Design Resources, who to date has done all of the work so far on Logan Avenue, has indicated that a topographic survey is will be required to do the design engineering work for the new sidewalks, curb and gutter, and the work that's being proposed. And if it's done at the same time with the same survey crew, we can see a savings of $4,000. The cost of the right-of-way survey is $10,800, and we can decide to do that. The cost of the topographic survey, the same area, if it's done separately, is $28,900. However, like I said, if they do both of them together, it'd be $35,700, a savings of $4,000. I would recommend approval of the proposal from Arc Design Resources in the amount not to exceed $35,700 to complete the Logan Avenue right-of-way and topographic survey, and this work will be paid for from the proceeds of our local motor fuel tax.
Motion, may I entertain a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Alderman Crawford, may I have a second? Alderman Snow, questions or comments? Okay, Alderman Porter.
I just wanted to ask about the feasibility of burying the lines along Logan. That's one of the things I've noticed looking down the road that's so unsightly about the road is all these wires that cross over the road and all the poles. Is there any possibility of getting those buried since we're in the process?
There is a possibility. It's probably, we're looking just like we're doing with the roadway as a hybrid, not a complete reconstruction. You're probably not looking at a complete burial. According to the relocation engineer, the typical average cost to bury ComEd facilities is $400 a foot. We have a lot more facilities along Logan Avenue, sections of Logan Avenue, than your typical, so it's probably going to be a lot more expensive than that. However, what we can look at is all the service drops, because the main power run is on the south side of the road. And so all the services for the north side buildings all go across the street, which is what you see. And it's not like ComEd, it's your cable, and it's your telephone. So each house has 3 wires going across the street. We can look at burying those underground, putting conduits in when we do the Logan Avenue project, and eliminating, at least you'll still have the main lines there, but at least most of the majority of your mid-block or in down each block of the service lines going through, we can get those underneath. In order to do that, you got to change the receiving end on the house from an aerial to an underground service. I've called a local electrician to get a ballpark budget estimate of what it would cost to make that switch over. When we had to do that as part of the State Street improvements quite a while ago, you were looking at about $5,000 a property to do that. So that cost would be figured in, but yes, we are looking to do that as well.
Would that be the responsibility of the homeowner then, or the city?
No, typically, that would be a part of our project cost.
Alderman Freeman.
So Brent, what is the, how do we obtain easements from the individual property owners? What's the process for that?
So that process, first we have the right-of-way survey done, so we know exactly where the right-of-way lines are and where our improvements are in relation to those right-of-way lines. And once we have that information, we can then give that to ComEd. ComEd looks at their service grid, knows where their pole locations are, then they determine how much room they would need on the private property. So they would actually develop the easement document itself. Once they do that, then they would give that easement document back to the city, back to us. We would then approach the property owners and acquire that easement on behalf of ComEd.
Pay for those? We have to buy those from property owners?
The first request would be, of course, just to obtain the easement at no cost. Then it all depends on the reception we get from the property owners, and then that would be part of the discussions with Commonwealth Edison as well and how that pertains.
Okay, Alderman Snow.
I'm looking at your section that you're talking about, and the pictures. So the intent would be to have a grassy area and then a 4-foot sidewalk as opposed to the picture on the top right where it's all right up to the curb.
Yes, what that cross-section shows you is a typical what can be done with a 66-foot right-of-way and the 48 feet of pavement, which is what our conditions are. The other nomenclature in there that you notice is 4-foot sidewalks. The recommended standard these days is 5-foot sidewalks. Again, ADA requirements. 4-foot sidewalks, if you go with 4-foot sidewalks, every 200 feet you have to put in a 5x5 sidewalk pad as a quote-unquote passing zone for ADA regulations. So IDOT recommends a 5-foot standard sidewalk. Our standard has still been 4 foot. And Columbia was a 4 foot. We did 4 foot wide sidewalks on Columbia, and we installed the 5x5 passing squares, if you will, every 200 feet.
So, we may wind up with no grassy area.
Right, you could end up with a grassy area, you could be a brick paver area, that's yet to be determined.
And then, when you talk about going underneath the street with the underground utility, what happens with this in an ideal world? Is it for total reconstruction, so any sewer and water lines in the future get revamped? If that were to occur 20 years down the road, that complicates things with the electrical going underneath?
No, not necessarily complicates things. If you recall, I think the price tag for total reconstruction was $5 to $6 million, and the council decided that we just don't have the funds available. As much as we'd like to be able to do something like that, we just don't have that kind of funds available to do that for this project. So that's why we went with the hybrid project. So the hybrid does include a portion of 4-inch water main replacement that we're required to do by the IEPA to upgrade that to 8-inch, but that would be the only underground that would be done. But no, if it has to be done, reconstructed in the future, then everything would be redone at that time. So the conduits would just be replaced.
Alderman Sanderson.
Can you refresh our memory on what the hybrid product would be? That's even without total, that's even without purchasing property if we have to from the homeowners.
So the hybrid project would include, again, if you look at the cross-section map, the pavement section is a fairly substantial pavement section. It used to be old Illinois State Route 5 back in the day. So the pavement section, there'd be a mill and overlay for the blacktop. However, the curb and gutters, most of the curb is broken up, fallen off, and we're also required to meet ADA requirements at all the intersections. So at every intersection, the whole radius, all the radiuses would have to be redone with new sidewalk returns and stuff to make them ADA compliant. The rest of the sidewalk up and along down that section is not in the best shape, so those sections would have to be redone. And all the pole conflicts that has ADA-wise on ComEd there, as you can see in the photos, those all have to be redone. So the hybrid included upgrading the 4-inch water main to an 8-inch water main. It included the new sidewalks, included new curb and gutter, basically terraces, driveway approaches, everything between the property line and the curb and gutter would be all new. And then you'd have a new coat of blacktop on the pavement surface. Now, it could be conceivable that once the survey work is done, we may do some modifications and maybe do some realignments so that perhaps some of the pole conflicts would be eliminated. So we don't have to do as many. We don't know until we have that right-of-way survey done. But again, this doesn't lock you into anything as far as the project goes on Logan Avenue. All this does is the work that's necessary in order to eliminate the ADA conflict, which is going to be our first step no matter what we do.
I don't think you gave me the estimate of what the cost was.
To do the reconstruction? It was $6 million, I thought I mentioned it. Yeah.
Well, you know, there's Second Ward, First Ward, and Fifth Ward have sewage problems. I'd rather see these taken care of before we get into this. This is just the start of something, then once we start this, then we gotta finish it. I'd rather just focus on getting our sewer problems taken care of rather than this road right now.
Would you care to respond to that?
Well, again, we look at it as a whole, or try to look at everything as a whole for you. We have street projects, we have many things to do. Logan Avenue is scheduled due for an overlay. It's been several years since it was done. That's what kind of kicked this whole discussion off, was the fact that State Streets, Logan Avenue and State Streets were all overlaid back around 1990, I want to say, I think, if I remember correctly, was the last time we did the overlays there. Portions of State Street have been overlaid, so with the balance of State needs to be done, as well as Logan Avenue. Unfortunately, when you do that, we have to comply with the ADA requirements. So I can't just overlay a section or any section of that I want to do on Logan Avenue. In order to be able to do that, I need to resolve the ADA conflicts. So that's kind of what generated this whole discussion. So not only, granted, we have stormwater issues on the south side of town, we have street issues, we have intersection issues. If you go back and look in your budget books and our list of 5-year list of capital improvements, there's a amalgamation of all kinds of projects out there that we need to be done, and they're all important to different aspects of the community. So I guess we got to keep that in mind as going forward and how we're going to prioritize. But again, it's going to be final calls up to the council on how you wish to proceed.
Alderman Frank?
Thank you. I just had a question, maybe you answered it already, but the other project was going to be 5 to 6 million. How much do you expect this one to be with all the survey costs? 35. Is that the 5 to 6?
No. The budget, again, going back to when we did the budget earlier this year, the estimated cost to do the overlay work and the realignment of the and doing the sidewalks and the curb and gutter, that was about 2.2 million.
Alderman Freeman?
So they're recommending that we do this topographic survey, but can we just do the right-of-way survey and do the sidewalks and relocation and comply with the ADA? And if we do the topographic survey, how long is that good for if we put off the Logan Avenue reconstruction project, you know, for 5 years? Is that topographic survey still going to be good for that?
Okay. The right-of-way survey, we can certainly do that, and that's the minimum that's needed to allow ComEd to do the work they need to do in order to eliminate the ADA conflict on the sidewalks. It doesn't do the sidewalks, it doesn't do anything for us except allows ComEd to do the work they need to do to move the poles so that we don't have that ADA conflict anymore. Now, instead of having a 3 foot or less than 3 foot clearance, we now have a 4 foot minimum clearance. So we've crossed that one ADA hurdle. In order to, so we can do that, and you can just do that now for the 10,000, whatever the memo was there, 10.8. The topographic survey, that will need to be done if and when we do the sidewalks, when we want to do the sidewalk returns, when we want to do the rest of the ADA requirement that we have to do for sidewalk ramps and stuff. So before we are able to overlay the roadway or do any of that kind of work, the topographic survey would need to be done. And you can do that on its own. What basically ARC is telling us that we can send one crew out there to get all that information at one time, and that results in a cost savings to the city of $4,000. So, and that topographic survey, that information would be good for a period of time, because I don't see a lot of things changing out there in the next 10, I mean, most of it's all built up, so I don't see a lot of changes to that information.
Becky, would this cost come out of this year's budget then, the proposed cost for this work?
It would. Brent and I talked about it. We could pay for it out of the revenues that we'll start receiving this month for the local motor fuel tax.
Okay. Additional questions or comments?
And again, just to remind you, this puts us off to fall of 2019, so the soonest anything could be done for the Logan Avenue project would be after May 1 of 2020. But then again, that's after it goes through council, after it goes through the budget process and gets approved. But you're looking at, if we do this now, the survey work, and get this ComEd issue resolved, the earliest anything could be done would be summer of 2020.
Alderman Frank, did I see?
I was just going to comment on the blight that's on Logan Avenue. And I know you want this to be the gateway to come into town, but there's so many bad houses on there. That's my street, so I should be happy about it. But it's just a lot of money, and I just don't think this is the time.
Additional questions or comments? Alderman Porter?
Just one quick question, Brent. I don't know if I missed this or not, but what would it be the cost for just doing the sidewalks to comply with the ADA and not doing the overlay?
I'd have to go back and I'd have to get you, I don't have a breakdown on that right now.
Okay, any other comments? I'll make a couple. First of all, if we wait 5 years, it's going to cost half again as much just for the work to get done. These costs are in today's dollars, and we're seeing a 7 to 9% increase in cost year over year. To do the engineering and have it on the shelf, ready to go when we do have the money to do it. And again, Brent makes an excellent point. Anything that we do, and we've passed some measures to raise our expectations for revenue. It is not a matter of this or the south side of town. We have plans to do this work, we would like to do this work, and we have plans as per the schedule that was presented to you on the work on the south side of town with the acquisition of the properties to, for the water, to create some more ponding areas for water. So it's not, we're gonna do this and sacrifice that, nor can we do that and sacrifice this. Everything's an ongoing cost. Prior to July of 2017, when we had a 100-year rain that caused a lot of flooding in the community, this was not a huge topic. The topic of Logan Avenue has been a topic for rebuilding and has been on our rotating list for 20 years. So the idea of raising additional revenue to be able to address capital projects was simply held in mind to be able to kind of do what we've done all along, is do part of this and then do part of that, and then do part of this and then do part of that. If you remember with Columbia Avenue, that was done in 2 parts, and it ended up costing us twice as much as the original estimate because it was 10 years apart from doing part 1 and part 2. So I just, to bring it to your attention, that there is always an incurred cost of not doing something. The engineering's gonna have to be done anyway at some point in time. I thought the fact that Brent was able to get a reduction of $4,000 on the cost of this was a good thing, but if you don't want to do that, that's fine. So can I have a motion to approve?
We have a motion, and the motion on the floor is what Mr. Anderson recommended for both.
Okay, do I have a second?
We do. We have Crawford and Snow.
Okay. Additional questions or comments? In that case, all those in favor of the motion proposed by Mr. Anderson signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Oh,
Okay, let's have a voice vote, or please, a roll call vote, please.
Something.
Sure.
I was just asking Becky for some clarification. Can we know what's going to come out of this budget? And she tried to explain it to me. Can we all know what's going to come out of this budget this year?
Sure.
So the total we'd be asking for right now, I think Brent is asking for is the $35,700, not the total cost of the project, just those 2 projects.
Okay, any other observations or comments? Sean?
Borowitz,
aye.
Brooks,
Aye.
Crawford,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman, Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe,
Aye.
Sanderson,
No.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
No.
8 in favor.
Okay, the motion is passed and will be forwarded to City Council for final disposition. Which brings us to F, an ordinance amending subdivision 5 of Division 9, wastewater treatment of Article 5, sewers and sewage of Chapter 114, utilities of the City of Belvidere Municipal Code. May I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Alderman Crawford. Do I have a second? Alderman Brooks, questions, comments, or explanation of all of that stuff? Alderman Snow.
You sure can.
You sure can.
You sure can. You all know what scrivener's error means. We screwed up when we drafted the original ordinance. There are 2 Section 521s, and Section 520 was mislabeled as the title of the article. It was either an error, it was actually originally drafted by our consultants, and going back and forth with them, somehow section numbers got confused, went off to the codifier, got codified the wrong way, and the US EPA caught it and suggested we fix it. So all we're actually doing is taking Section 521, the first one, and making that 520. It's loaded, the version you have identifies it as 521. So we're fixing section numbers, and that's it. No substantive change to the code.
And for a future, or more background quickly, this is our pretreatment requirements for our wastewater treatment plant, which are required from US EPA. So the drafting was done, the work was done. This gets reviewed every 5 years process, and so those changes were made. It went to, council approved them. We sent it to US EPA for their review, and that's where they caught the error with the numbering, so that's why it's back in front of you. But it's part of our pretreatment program, which is required by US EPA, and they basically tell us what we have to include, so.
It was part of an ordinance that, gosh, spanned 5 or 6 different chapters, and I can't remember, easily close to 100 pages probably.
Any additional questions or comments? Alderman Stevens?
So basically, you said we're not changing text, we're just changing numbers to realign to get it to go smoothly.
You got it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Suppose ordinance is approved unanimously and be forwarded to City Council for final disposition. Okay. Under other this evening, we have a really good one. Under A, Bronze Police and Fire Tribute Sculpture for Hub Plaza, donation by Jack and Peggy Wolf. And let me give you a little background. Mr. Wolf came to us, quite some time ago, and talked to us about he wanted to build a tribute sculpture to our police and firemen. And as you know, he was one of the major donors for the beautiful bronze statuary that's out there on the fairgrounds on the corner. He wants to do this for our fire and police. Because of the nature of his trust, he needs to move this out of the trust through a nonprofit. For IRS consideration, the city is considered to be a not-for-profit. So this $10,000 is a small part of the total cost of the statue, and all that's happening here is he wrote us a check to forward on to the sculptor, who is actually a local guy from Mount Morris. And so as this project goes forward, there will be other checks issued as the project progresses until it's paid for. This statuary will be a gift to the city of Belvidere, and it will be positioned on the campus over here by Hub Plaza, with its base part on city property and part on historical museum property. So may I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
May I have a second? Second by Alderman Sanderson. Additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Yes.
I just want to say thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Wolf.
They're really giving a lot more to the community now than ever before, which, you know, if you look around this community and you've lived here a while, you realize that most of our public art, most of our uplifting funds that are put aside for library, YMCA, all of those types of things are at the generosity of the Wolf family, and we're very grateful to have citizens who care about the community at that level. So, anything else? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion is passed unanimously. We forward to City Council for final disposition. Next, Alderman Stevens had a question about drive-up liquor sales.
Yes, I did. Through talking to different business people, I'd heard that we were going to possibly have a drive-up liquor window. And my questions were, and I kind of looked at this, with the Bassett laws, I was afraid that, I got to look it up here, during the training, they talk about having the person, you know, in front of them being able to determine whether he's intoxicated by movements and all that. Of course, I don't know what exactly is in the training. I was just going by the synopsis of it. And I was just concerned that if a person's just sitting in a vehicle, the clerks won't get a good enough sense of how the people are is impossibly intoxicated. So I had questions of it. And I actually talked to Mr. Sabino today, and I think he'd like to give his point of view on it.
Mr. Sabino, would you care to comment? Attorney Drella, would you like to comment on this?
Not really, I don't know if that's a question
Okay.
right at this point. Unless there's a
Then I-
question.
Then I'll comment a little bit. It's permissible under our code. And you all might remember that years ago, there was a liquor store that was down where the county health department is now, at that end building facing Shadley's, and they had a drive-through window. This would be for package sales, not drinks by the drink. That's our take on that. So would that satisfy your need, or were you wanting to have a daiquiri window?
I'm sorry, we can say it in
Under our liquor code for the city of Belvidere, we have no restriction about that, except it's a package window. Years ago, there was a window where the health department is now. If you go down there and look on that end wall facing Shadley, you can see where they bricked it up. And for package sales from the liquor store that was there. So we have no objection to it, but we do not want to see by the drink sales out the window. Well, you know, some places, like in Louisiana, they have these daiquiri places along the road that you just pull off and go through and get a daiquiri. And so we kind of didn't want to go there.
Anything that I would do, if I do anything I would do would be package only. I'm not even sure at this point that I want people to even walk in and go down aisles. This is strictly going to be package goods only, where, you know, people either come in or they drive up. There's a lot of reasons for a drive-up window. And like I talked with all of them today a little bit, you know, there's 80 million baby boomers right now. Every 8 seconds somebody's turning 65 years old in this country. And a lot of people don't want to go, you know, into liquor stores or busy gas stations or stand in line. All I'm looking for is something that is convenient, you know, for people. Another group is millennials. Their health is convenient. They don't want to get out of their cars. You know, so I think there's a lot of, from a business standpoint, I think it's a very good thing to cater to people's needs. We're going to be faced, I told Alderman earlier today, Boone County and Belvidere businesses are going to be faced with a huge Costco opening up in the next few months. And I don't want to see, and I've got tenants in my village here in Belvidere, I don't want to see a big sucking sound going out of Belvidere going over to Costco. You know, we have to make it as easy for people to spend money in Belvidere and Boone County as we possibly can. And it's going to pin more and more convenience items. People want convenience. Amazon didn't just spring up because, you know, they thought it was a good idea. Amazon made it convenient for people. And that's what I think that, if I do this, that's what I think that, you know, that's my goal, is to make it easy for people to drink here in Belvidere. I got 14,500 cars drive by that location every day. That means half of those cars, let's say 7,000 for a number, 7,000 of those cars are going to Rockford, and 7,000 of them are coming back from Rockford. I want to make it easier for them to spend their money here in Belvidere and as town before they go to Rockford. So there's I think there's a lot of good reasons for this. I can't think of a ton of it, but I will work with the city in any way I can to, and you know the kind of businesses that I run, to run the proper type of business. So, at this point, I'm finishing my research and
Okay, Alderman Snow, then Alderman Brooks.
And if I recall correctly, because it's a drive-through, it would have to go through special zoning, special use permit.
Correct. Drive-through sales are a special use, so obviously some properties already have that special use in place, others do not. For the ones that do not, they would have to get that special use approved by the city council prior to being able to sell anything.
Okay, Alderman Brooks.
Yes, in the capital of the great state of Illinois, when I was growing up, Springfield, there was a place on Cook Street there, and it's still there to this date, where they sell out the side of the building, their liquor store. And I never knew of any problems that they ever had there, never read in the paper or anything about any problems with it. So I think it's a good idea, and I wish you well in your quest to succeed.
Yes, sir.
As I stated earlier, my concern is with the Bassett, with the training of the people not being able to get a good look at them, and I'd like to be able to restrict, either how much liquor can go out the window to a given vehicle or not to allow it at all.
Well, okay.
I would just make a comment that we already, like the mayor said, are allowing it, and you can order your groceries and liquor at Walmart, pull up, they ask for your ID and make sure you're 21 years old, and you can drive off with liquor at Walmart.
I would think if we approve this and move it forward, that'll give me as a liquor commissioner an opportunity to talk to the Bassett people and see if they have any thoughts or ideas on this kind of thing. I would say this, you're gonna have to ask for ID. You're not gonna give people a breathalyzer. If you observe that they seem to have too much, then the clerk can just say, in my opinion, you have too much to drink, and I'm not gonna serve you. I'm not gonna sell you liquor. I mean, it's no different than somebody walking into the house of bottles, so,
Mr. Mayor, at this point, there's actually nothing to approve.
okay.
It's already it's permissible under our current code.
I will do the research and get back to you with what I find out. Alderman Crawford?
I was just gonna say, in the liquor stores, there's people that walk in there intoxicated, you wouldn't even know they're intoxicated. So
I'm
it's
not
no
an
different
authority
than
on that.
just buying it in the car.
Yes, sir. Alderman Sanderson?
And I appreciate, Alderman Stevens bringing this forward because, he does have a point. It's harder to observe somebody sitting in a car. But, there is the other point that we can get stuff on Amazon, we can get wine on Amazon and stuff like that. It's worth looking into and getting back with us, but, I have seen this in other areas, and I haven't heard, there's problems, so. But I appreciate him bringing it forward, because that's a liability for us to allow that if there's a problem.
No, it's not really a liability for us. And if you look at what the Bassett training really is it's to teach you to discern, but it's to tell you very specifically you need to check ID. And when there are violations of the Bassett rule, because a lot of kids will try to go to the grocery store or someplace like that to get their liquor, that's where the violations occur, because the state will do a sting. So, realistically, as Attorney Drell has said, we allow it in our code. So if you want to do it, you can do it. So I'll still look into it and see if Bassett has any thoughts about that. But absent them serving someone who is noticeably intoxicated and then gets stopped, 10 feet away, even then, that becomes a nebulous thing. But if they serve someone who is underage, even if they have a fake ID, then that's the real problem, is just having to card people. And obviously, the Bassett training teaches them how to be discerning. So, anything else? Okay, Brent, you want to talk about smart LED street lighting?
Oh, yeah, just to note including your packets for information, we received notice from Commonwealth Edison that they are going to begin the process of changing out the balance of the LED streetlights for Commonwealth Edison-owned poles. The city has already changed out all of our streetlights over the years, so ComEd's going to start doing that project on theirs, which will realize probably, according to their estimates, I think it's about a $40,000 or $45,000 annual savings on electrical costs.
Yay, that. Alderman Sanderson?
This question's kind of for Brent, since ComEd, we pay for the lighting. Are the poles theirs, like the ones that are in subdivision that could, like in my subdivision, I noticed the poles were painted black and the paint's peeling off of it and stripped off. Whose obligation would that be to upkeep that pole? That like in a Doggate subdivision, I'm sure the other newer subdivisions have the same problem where whether they haven't been upkept.
Some subdivisions we own the poles and maintain the poles, maintain everything. Other subdivisions, ComEd owns the poles and maintains the poles. In the case which you're referencing there, that's probably the black fiberglass ComEd standard. And typically, what's happening is the fiberglass is actually just fading, so it's getting to be a grayish color instead of the black. But that would be a ComEd responsibility to take care of. Same way as their schedule is, I've changed out the LEDs, getting rid of the mercury vapor lights that we have now, going to the LED lights. Again, that's ComEd-owned property, and that's to ComEd's schedule. We have no effect on that schedule.
Almost all those poles, it almost looks like you can see the silver through it, not just faded, it's just black and then
Well,
scrape
it's the
marks.
fiberglass it's actually fading out.
Yeah.
So you're getting to the actual you're seeing the true color of the fiberglass coming out.
So
That's what
could
you're
we,
seeing.
could we ask them to take a look at that?
We can do that.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, comments, topics of interest this evening? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
By Alderman Sanderson, second by Alderman Crawford. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In that case, ladies and gentlemen, we are now adjourned. Thank you for your participation this evening.